So I like to start with a little joke, and this is about an elderly man who goes to his audiologist, and he invests in a state-of-the-art hearing aid. And the audiologist said, from now on, you will be able to hear absolutely perfectly. So anyway, he left, and 2 weeks later, he came back, and he said to his patient, he said, well, how's the hearing? He said, the hearing's just perfect. I can hear everything. And he said, well, what does your family think now that you... He said, oh, I haven't told them. And the audiologist said, you haven't told them? He said, no, I've sat very quietly, and I've changed my will 3 times. So, what is a miracle? So many of us perhaps came from different philosophies. Many of you were born into unity, and how blessed you were. But we think a miracle is out there. It happens to somebody else. That was Jesus. It was Moses. But you see, miracles are you, and they're myself. They're all of us. They're all of us. Our co-founder, Charles Fillmore, said this, that this is the first principle of unity. We do not pray to God. We pray from a consciousness of oneness. And there's a whole difference there if we're praying to this Father figure out there, which there's no such thing, or we realize that God is the grand operational design, forever moving, always making more and never less of itself. And then he goes on to say, miracles do not exist if by miracle we mean there is some divine intervener supplanting natural law. There is no such thing. God, if we believe that, then God does miracles for some people and God doesn't. That's not what we have as a God. We have a loving God that loves each and every one of us beyond what we could ever imagine. But God works through the law, which is one of our unity principles. And that law says, as we believe, we receive. That is the message of Jesus. In the Bible, John 15, verses 17, Jesus said, my Father and I are one. Well, we might say that's great for Jesus, but what about us? But then he said, and you and I are my brothers and sisters. These things and greater can you do. And then he went on to say in John 5:17 to 19, he said, it is not I, but the Father within that does the work. So Jesus was taking no credit for this. He knew that within him, meaning and within you and within me, is the power, such power. Are we going to release it? Because when we release that power, all human bets are off. Then miracles occur. And it's a marvelous thought. And you know, I thought about saying the words twice, about this, how important it is to move into a miracle consciousness where we not only expect the best, we accept it. We no longer block it. You know, Reverend Doug is very kind. He put up a clock and he said, you can only tell 40 stories this morning. No. And no, he would never do that. He is so kind and good to me. So it's a realization of what a miracle is. And it's about changing ourselves. So the Father within, this grand operational design that doesn't judge you and me, that knows nothing about sins. This is love incarnate, but it works through the law. And the law of cause and effect is always, it's the third law of physics. What we give out, we get back. So how many blocks do we put up of a miracle? Because the Father within, this grand operational design, is ready and willing to allow us to accept the best for our lives, to allow the synchronicities to appear in our life. We say, oh, well, you know, it's a coincidence. There are no coincidences in God. You know, there's a story, number one story, about a man that, so to speak, goes to heaven. And he's walking through all of these rooms, and there's one room that's blocked off. And he says, well, I want to go in that room. They said, no, you can't. He said, it would break your heart. And he said, no, I want to go into that room and see what's in there. So they open this room, and it's filled with the most magnificent package of gifts, beautifully wrapped, and it's all alphabetized. And he sees under his name, or the initial, all these gifts. And he said, well, why didn't I ever get these gifts? And the person, St. Peter will just say, well, they're not only gifts, they're blessings and they're miracles. He said, well, why didn't I ever receive them? He said, because you weren't open to them. You blocked them with your fear, your doubt, and your anxiety. But they were here for you all the time. So it's us to be able to say, all right, I am no longer in worry and doubt and in fear. I'm going to let that go right here and right now. And if we can't let it go for months, let's do it this week. Let's really work on letting go of doubt, of fear, of shame. How many carry shame? I know it's taken me a long time to work past that. And you know what shame is, don't you? It is not thinking that we make a mistake. It's thinking we are the mistake. And you see, there are no mistakes in God. Each one of us have an appointment to be here today, on time and in time. Some of us say, well, you know, my time is up. Our time isn't up until we take that last breath. Each one of us have a task to do. And if we are opened to allow the Father within, the grand operational design to work through us, miracles start to occur. You know, I was talking to a client of mine in LA, and her husband is at UCLA receiving some treatments, and they were just about out of treatments. They didn't know what more to do. And they have prayed and they have meditated, and they have kept that high watch, knowing something would pop up, something would occur. And sure enough, when the doctor walked in this last time, he said, you know, Tim, it's really interesting. He said, right before I came in, I opened up one of my magazines, medical magazines, journals, and he said, I saw that there is a new trial starting. And he said, I think you'll fit into this, and we are having enormous success. Coincidence, or was this the divine physician working through him, answering a prayer? So we come in at a vibration. You know, years ago we didn't hear much about vibration. Now that's all Joe Dispenza and all of them speak about. And the physicists, because there are low vibrations, and low vibrations are worry, doubt, and fear. And if we are in worry, doubt, and fear, what are we going to get back? Worry, doubt, and fear, right? But we are called as people in unity, as metaphysicians who are called to change their thinking and change their life. And when is the last time we've had a new thought? Anybody? Anybody have a new thought anytime soon? Thank you. So anyway, we raise our vibration level to a level of expecting miracles, expecting the best. And when we start seeing a possibility thinking, everything changes. Now, the circumstance may not change, but we change, and we hold a high watch for that circumstance. We may have a bill that we think, well, this will never get paid. Or we can take it upstairs to a high watch, and we can say, I'm going to do everything I can, work as hard as I can to get that done. And I know it's paid already, and we see it paid in full. Reverend Dr. Roger Teal up at Mile High tells a story, and I believe it's in one of his books, too, about a man by the name of Ed O'Donnell. And in Mile High, they used to take a lot of trips as a congregation, those who wanted. This was going to Egypt. It was an expensive trip. And Ed O'Donnell and his wife, Mary, wanted to take that trip. It's been their dream all of their life. And they needed to put an $1,100 deposit down. And they had kids in college, and they didn't have the extra $1,100. But they kept saying, and Mary would say to Dr. Teal, Roger, she would say, we're going. And you know, they had a deadline. The money had it to be in by a certain date. So all of a sudden, Mary was up cleaning the attic, and she found in an old suitcase or brief, whatever, She opened it up, and there was a card addressed to her husband, and it was from his grandmother. And she opened it up, and there was a coin in there, just a small coin. So she gave it to Ed. Ed took it to a coin dealer, and guess what it was worth? $1,100. And that was a true story. So, we laugh, we say, oh, it can happen to them. It can happen to all of us. How are we seeing any issue in our life? Because any issue, when we take it upstairs and we take that high vibration, because that's where Jesus lived, that's where the miracles came through. He didn't put his hands on people. He knew, because he came from a high vibration, the possibility. And that's what unity is all about. Unity is about possibility thinking. It's about keeping a high watch, knowing that no matter what the circumstance, whatever the news tells us, and hopefully we won't even watch it this week, but there is a higher vibration available to each and every one of us. And we get that by standing in the awareness that, yes, we do the best we can to whatever it is, the healing, the abundance, the relationships, but then we take it upstairs and say, I know that there is a power and a presence in this universe. And with that power and presence, that I am willing to release that grand operational design that lives within me and around me. And I know this is going to be done. Now, sometimes does it happen the way we think it's going to happen? Not always. But I'll tell you what, every prayer is heard. Every prayer. This is a magnificent universe. It is a universe of wisdom and clarity. And when we hold that vibration, this or something better will take place. Are you with me? It's so marvelous. Emerson said something. He said, what lies beyond us and what lies in back of us pales in comparison to what lies within us. Okay, second story, Reverend Doug. He's counting. He's holding up his fingers. So how about Alice Marie Johnson? Have you all seen her on TV? She was just named the Pardon Czar. And she said she went from the big house to the White House. In 1996, she was arrested. She had cocaine in her car, and they said that she was a member of a cartel, blah, blah, blah. And she was sentenced to life in jail, right? She was there for 21 years. But she kept a high watch that she was more than some cocaine dealer or whatever. And so she decided she was changing her life. She was going to change her thinking about herself. So she became a licensed hospice teacher, and then she became an ordained minister. And then she started talking. She was being interviewed, and her interviews were so uplifting about possibility thinking, not where she was, but where she was now, and how she held a high watch for herself, that she was more than any action. She was more than any shame that she carried. She kept that high watch, that she was more than that, and that something marvelous was going to happen. She thought in miracle consciousness. And there's the group of Justice for All, or whatever. They worked with her. She was released after 21 years in prison as an ordained minister and as a licensed hospice teacher. And she started lecturing around the country, telling infinite possibilities. Look at me. I am a walking a miracle. I went from here to here by the grace of God, by opening up myself to the miracles that can occur. And sure enough, she was just appointed as the Pardon Czar, which means she will not be looking at hardened criminals. That's not what this is about. But people that are arrested on drug charges or whatever. And not that I'm not arguing that, but the ones that have been able to see themselves above their circumstance. She will review their circumstance, and she will be the advocate for pardon. So she laughs and she said, I went from the big house to the White House. But because she believed, that not only believed in miracles, she believed she was a miracle. Each one of us today are a miracle, or we wouldn't be here. And you know, we lose track of ourselves because we have been brought into this incarnation. And I say this almost every Sunday. I have to remind myself, for a reason and a purpose. Until we take our last breath, we are here for a reason and a purpose. And you know what that purpose is? It is to be the presence of God to all that we meet. It is to be the peace of God, the grace of God, the love of God, the joy of God. And to open ourselves to that place within us that we know why we're here. Do you know, Reverend Michael and Ricky Byward, one of their songs, do you know why you're alive? And this morning, each one of us, I hope, will rise up to that awareness. I know why I'm alive. And I know something within me is waiting for me to get out of doubt and fear and anxiety to allow the miracles that are mine by divine birthright to flow through. I'm not saying we don't have illness. I'm not saying that we don't have abundance relation. That's the human realm. But we have been chosen. We are chosen here to know this is the human realm. And I raise myself above it. I know that I have a God or a grand operational design with whom all things are possible, all things. So today, realize, and I hope we'll all take that with us, at least for this week, I am a living miracle, and I am allowing this magnificent presence all around me and within me to bring me up to see the high possibilities that are available for me. We have such value. The universe needs us. The world needs us. It needs that consciousness. It needs that consciousness that rises above anything else in our life. We can recognize it. We're not airy-fairy thinkers here. They say, oh, it just doesn't exist. That drives me crazy. But we know it exists. Yes, it's here. I will do what I can to fix it. And I'm going upstairs to know that there's a power and a presence greater than I could ever imagine. The divine order of this universe, that the keeper of the stars and the moon and all this. How could it not love me, who has accepted you, who have accepted to be here at this time and place to show up for the presence of God? We have all this support behind us, in front of us. So what are we going to do with it this week? We can look at the problem. Yep, this is what's happening. And there's a higher awareness. I'll do what I have to do here, but I'm going to keep a high watch that is already done in the mind of God. That's the realization that I'm going to have this week. Everybody here? Anybody listening? Oh, good. No more stories on this one, Reverend Doug. He's so happy now. He's laughing. Now, the next thing I'd like to talk about is acceptance, and this is important. I am worthy of a miracle, again, because my life has meaning and purpose, and the Father within, the grand operational design, is working through me. Now, let me talk about this church for a moment. This church, I don't know how long I have been speaking here. Sandra and Megan know everything, so they would be able to tell us. Maybe a year and a half, maybe 2, I don't know. But ever since I have been here, you have had an affirmation for a new minister, right? You have said it every Sunday. And while most of the congregation doesn't know, the chaplains go in, and then they meditate before church on their new minister, right? And they repeat the affirmation. Well, let me tell you what this affirmation has done. Number one, it has ingrained in all of you a belief system that this minister will come. You have stood in that awareness, and you've had several interviews with ministers that just haven't felt the vision for this church. And Reverend Doug Dewar. Now let me tell you about this man. This man, and it's funny, I was talking to my daughter-in-law about this yesterday. who's very involved with the church. This man could have had any church that he wanted that's opened in unity. He could have been down in Southern California to a beautiful church there. He was called here by your consciousness. And this man is so talented. He's won awards. He's worked with. You just have no idea what your consciousness has brought into this church with Reverend Doug Doerr. And not only have you brought Reverend, he's making a face at me, just ignore him. Not only have you brought him into this church by your consciousness, which is a miracle in itself, but you've brought his wonderful husband, Troy, in, who's the wing beneath his sails. So you have a duo in this church that most churches would absolutely die for. How did you ever get these people here in Dallas? And they could have gone anywhere. But they had a calling because you knew, you stood on a principle. You knew a miracle could take place. They could have gone everywhere, and they answered a call to come to Dallas because of your consciousness and you keeping a high watch that a miracle minister would show up for this church. Are we in agreement? Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. This is a living miracle for this church, and it's because of your consciousness that he and Troy are here. So how grateful. And the third thing is, no more stories. Okay. It's moving into the field. My favorite quote of all times is Rumi. He says, beyond all right doing and all wrongdoing, there is a field. Meet me there. Where what Rumi is talking about is the field of infinite possibilities and all potential. And it's an invitation to let go of right doing, wrong doing, Democrat, Republican, whatever it is, letting it all go and moving into a field of clarity beyond all of this other stuff. Because when we get into the field of clarity, when we get into the field of knowing miracles exist, a field of all possibilities, then we really start, that vibration starts to lift and lift and lift until miracles, if we're aware and awake every single day to what is transpiring around us, miracles occur. Right people show up, right instances. It wasn't long ago I was thinking about a Four Freshmen song, and I can't remember. It hadn't played in years. I was in Florida with my daughter. And out of a clear blue sky, it played on the radio. Because I'd been thinking about this song, something about New Year's Eve. It was beautiful, the Four Lads. She said, I've never heard that song before. And I said, well, I've been thinking about it for days. So we realize the power of our thinking. So would you join me this week? It's an invitation to move into a field where there are miracles taking place if we look for them. You know, yes, this is happening in my life. I recognize it. And I'm going to take it upstairs. And I'm going to know that with the power and the presence and the love of God that is around me and within me, all things are possible. Miracles take place at that level. Healings occur. What does the Course of Miracles say? That a miracle is a change in perception. So when we get to that high vibration, we have a whole different idea and of perception. So be open and available this week. God, grand operational design is standing right within you and around you, saying, come, child. This world is better than you can ever imagine. You are here for me, this grand operational design, and I am here for you each and every moment of each and every day. God bless you.